what's going on, everybody? It's another episode of 3PN's Recap and Review Test Series, I think is what we're kind of calling it. This is Chapter 6, Far, Far Away. I think, are pretty excited to get into this one. So this is number 6. I think there's a total of 8 of them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, total of 8 of them. So how did you feel about this episode?
So I was really excited for this episode because I already knew, obviously going up into this, what's happening in this episode, kind of. And I was really excited. So this is one of my favorite episodes, but this is the beginning of some of my largest grievances with the series as a whole. So mixed feelings about the actual episode itself, but I'm really excited to talk about it. And despite the things I didn't like, I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's an enjoyable show. I think that, and we've talked about this. I don't know if we've talked about this in one of our previous episodes or it was just between me and you, but like I can still really enjoy something and still have some issues with it. But I really, even watching this over again, making notes, whatever, I enjoy the show. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah, but like you said, so things there here and there that I can take issue with. But before we get into it, I just got a couple housekeeping notes. I know episode 4 and 5 had some audio issues, so we apologize for that. I'm probably not going to go back and edit everything to make it sound perfect, just because this is our kind of test series before we actually do our weekly or whatever we're going to do for our actual podcast. So I'm not going to say it doesn't matter as much, but I've adjusted some things for this, so hopefully from here on out we won't have those many issues. Things will come up. It's just part of the game, I'm sure, and a learning curve for all of us. But you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. I think it's good to show some of our blemishes, right? I think the whole part of the point of all of this is to enjoy these hobbies with like-minded and similar lifestyled individuals, and I feel like it'd be kind of fake if we made everything look absolutely perfect off the rip and these guys are just pros at this. Like, we're not pros at all. And so I think it's cool that you guys are here with us, and I think it's cool that you guys are watching us grow and learn and develop this addition to our already busy lifestyles and hobbies that we partake in.
That is very true. I know we all three of us, I know nobody's really seen Raider yet, but we have recorded some things with him, and he's a new dad, brand new dad.
Yeah.
He's getting married soon. All three of us are relatively new dads, new husbands. We live in different time zones, most of us, so it's hard to get all this together, but it's also a time. I think one of the main reasons we wanted to do this was because we don't see each other at all anymore.
Yeah. And
it's just, it's our time to catch up, and it's something that we like to do. We like, video games and Star Wars and Game of Thrones, and it's fun. Whether this takes off or not, oh well, I think, in my perspective, just because it's fun. I enjoy it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Jake's kid hasn't even come home yet, right? They're still in the hospital.
You mean Raider?
Yeah.
I think you said Jake. My Justin. Kid's here. He's 2.
I meant Justin. But
okay. No. And I'm sure we'll let him kind of jump into all that if he wants to talk about it. But I know that his child, I believe his name's Jensen, is in the NICU still, but he's doing great. So hopefully they'll be able to bring him home early December, I think is what they're scheduled. So.
Oh yeah, he was a premature baby. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
so I'm sure.
And I was using first names because I know eventually Justin's brother might come in, and so if we just start rattling off Raider, although his first name's Jake, so
yeah, that's gonna be confusing.
I guess it doesn't really matter.
All right, let's jump into it.
Yep.
All right, we left off inside a space whale, and inside the mouth of the space whale, magic school bus style, with Ahsoka and Hugh Yang, right? So we pick up the first scene is actually kind of cool. It's like this trippy like sci-fi, like you're inside the hyperspace lane is what it looks like with these
Yeah.
Purgo, right?
Yep.
Ahsoka and Hugh Yang just passing time, kind of just bullshitting, right? And Ahsoka tells Hugh Yang that Sabine went with Balon willingly. Kind of confesses that she didn't tell Hera the whole truth, and Ahsoka's obviously disappointed, a little pissed off in like her actions, but Hugh Yang actually pushes back a little bit, and says for Sabine it could have been the only choice she had. And Ahsoka looking to change the subject, because I think her, along with everyone else watching this, thinks that's a line of bullshit, in my opinion. But looking to change the subject, she obviously doesn't really want to talk about it anymore. Tells Hugh Yang to tell her one of his stories that he mentioned earlier in the conversation about the. I think he was telling stories from like when he was training the young Jedi or whatever. And before the scene cuts where he starts the story as long ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I just think that's so cool, to add that in there.
It was pretty sick. I remember like when I watched the show for the first time and I saw that, it was one of those jaw drop moments. I was like,
yeah,
that was super cool. I think in some of their shows they've added that little script at the beginning, like all the movies have, but they've definitely sort of stepped away from it a little bit. So it was really cool. Like, I guess a little Easter egg that they threw in there. Yeah. It made a good opening to the episode, a great opening to the episode. Yeah. And I also, just going back to that little conversation where Hugh Yang is like, hey, it could have been our only option or whatever. I don't think I know outwardly Ahsoka's like, yeah, whatever, but she's always been kind of like, rebellious and sort of, I can't think of the word, but like, I don't know, pig-headed and sort of like
pushes back against authority,
Exactly, yeah. And so, but I think if you watch her like facial expression, you can see that she's thinking, right? And I think she really kind of it puts some stuff into perspective because to Ahsoka, the only right answer is making sure that Thrawn does not come back to the Empire. But to man, I really got to get better at not forgetting names on this. Sabine, holy crap! To Sabine, her only option is saving Ezra, and I think both of those are noble causes, right? And I also think that Sabine left her helmet on purpose. She knows what Ahsoka can do, so I think she.
Yeah, but then at that point, didn't she think Ahsoka was dead?
Yeah, but I mean, who knows, right? Yeah. She could have had a feeling that she didn't understand. But at any rate, it seemed like she left breadcrumbs, and also, if she would have not went willingly, she would have just been killed. They all like they had two Sith.
But see, this is my issue with that, though. I mean, it's not even that. Like, yeah, she probably would have been killed, but she had the map in her hand. She had a blaster to like the actual map, and Ahsoka said destroy it, and she refused because she like refuse.
This. She hesitated.
But she ended up handing it over to Balon.
Her brother is is trapped, right? So even if she truly meant to destroy the map, which I think was her intention initially, when that thought ran across her mind that Ezra would never be able to be saved again, she hesitated. And granted, like, she probably should have just blasted it. A lot of us probably would have just blasted the map away. But she loves this guy, whether it's a familial kind of love or something more than that, who knows. But she loves Ezra. She is willing to do almost anything just to see him again, let alone save him.
Yeah, including
So of course,
bring back Space Hitler to kill everyone in the galaxy.
well, obviously
like,
that thought's not on the forefront of her mind. That's the thought that's on the forefront of Ahsoka's mind. They have two different goals, and I think that was part of the problem. Is
yeah.
neither of those two wanted to reconcile their individual goals. Ahsoka was solely focused on what she thought was the right thing to do, and Sabine was solely focused on what she thought was the right thing to do. And I don't think either of those things are necessarily wrong. They just don't. They're not including the other side of the coin, really.
I get why she did it. I understand like her. I mean, because it is selfish, but I mean that's a care. I mean, regular people, it doesn't have to be a make believe whatever. Like people are selfish and they make stupid decisions. I guess
some people might say it was selfless because now
maybe.
she's at the whim of some Sith Lords and some witch and potentially Thrawn. Yeah. Like she's not just getting off scot free. It's not like she's jumping on this boat and living a life of luxury.
Is she not getting off scot free? I mean, because this is the thing. There hasn't been, and we'll get to this later. I mean, we only got 2 episodes left, but Sabine needs some consequences to what she's done, and it almost they gloss over it essentially. And we don't. Maybe there's going to be a season 2. Maybe I know there's talks about that movie that they're going to bring all this into a movie of like Thrawn and all that, and so maybe something. But say they get back. I mean, I know we're skipping ahead and whatever, but say they get back to the other galaxy at some point, whatever. Like she's got to have some kind of like. I would be super disappointed if they just completely glossed over it and everyone just gives her a free pass.
Well, I don't think she's going to face legal repercussions, which is what I think you want. But she is gonna have to answer to these issues in other ways. Like when she gets back to the galaxy, she's gonna have to deal with Thrawn, and that's not going to be a walk in the park. Now, it'll partly be her fault. And
partly, it's mostly her fault.
And well, I mean, I think it's more Balon and that witch's fault, really.
Well,
she just got put into a situation.
This is now 2 times she gave the map to them. Right? This is twice. The first time was when Shin took it from her.
Well, she didn't give it to Shin. Shin beat the crap out of her. Let's be fair here. If we're gonna say, hey, Ren's the worst person ever, this first time wasn't really her fault. She could have probably not stolen the map in the first place.
Well, I guess that's my point, right? She stole it from Ahsoka.
Yeah, and she got ran through with a lightsaber because of it, so she still didn't get off scot-free.
You're right. No, you're right there.
So,
all right, let's move on to the next scene. All right, we cut to Sabine. She's in a cell, handcuffed. Baylan and her are kind of bantering through the door there, the cell door. She says, "We had a deal. You told me I would see Ezra again." And Baylan basically just smirks and walks away. Mm-hmm. So kind of quick cell scene. Nothing really much to that, but obviously they've gone against her deal with him. And at least that's how I took it, is that I don't think she thought she was going to be imprisoned. You know what I mean?
She thought she would have like free reign on the ship and be treated like not a prisoner. But he's not really going back on his deal. But he is making sure that she doesn't sabotage them along the way. They're not torturing her. They're just keeping her confined, which a smart person would do, because she's not on.
But what is she going to do? She can't wield the Force. We've already seen that. At least as far as everyone there knows.
They're on a giant ship that is traveling. I don't know how fast light speed is, and they're probably traveling faster than that to get to another galaxy.
Yeah,
so I'm sure if she were to go in there and like mess with their like computers and stuff, she doesn't need the Force for that. She can just
but why would she? She already went along willingly and wants to find Ezra. Like that's her ride to Ezra.
I mean, she could have second thoughts. You never know. She could decide, wait, this probably isn't a good idea, and then try and weasel her way into ruining everyone's plans. So I think it was smart what they did. They weren't really going back on her deal. They didn't say, "Hey, you'll get a free ride in a luxury yacht." They just said, hey, we'll bring you to Ezra," which they still don't really do. But they're like, "Hey, we'll bring you to Ezra. Just give us the map." So they're bringing her to as close to Ezra as they can, and so everyone's holding up their deal. She's just being impatient. She's a Mandalorian, right? So she's gonna be angsty and angry.
Well, we're back up on the bridge. Morgan's walking up there to Shin and Morgan. Or did I say whatever? Balon, Morgan, and Shin. They're all.
You said Morgan's walking up the bridge to Shin.
Yeah, Morgan. You know what I meant.
Yeah.
Balon's walking up to Morgan and Shin, asks about the prisoner. Balon tells her that she's impatient, obviously. Morgan questions Balon about his intent to keep his promise to Sabine. He tells her that her drive to find Ezra blinds her and that she could still be of use to them. I think Morgan kind of thinks he's being foolish, but doesn't really say much, right? And Balon, I think, is intending to keep his promise. Then they exit hyperspace and arrive at the planet called Peridia. We find out it's the ancient homeworld of the Dathomiri, apparently.
Yeah.
Right. Balon tells them that the Jedi Archive spoke of this place. It's at the end of the migration route used by the Star Whales, which I think we've already been over a little bit with when they were talking about the Purgo earlier in the series. Morgan tells them that her people harnessed and rode the Purgrill, and she says in the days before time was counted, whatever that means. So basically just ancient people of Dathomir. Very, very old,
she's just trying to sound hoity-toity and cool, and she still hasn't quite realized yet that she is like at the bottom of the totem pole. Yeah. She's still speaking from a point of authority. She gets over that pretty soon.
Yeah. Balon tells them that Peridia is a graveyard for the Purgil. And then we cut to outside of the ship, and all you see is these giant Purgil bones. It's a massive graveyard. Pretty cool shot. They receive a beacon signal, is what they call it, from the planet's surface, and Morgan says, "Let's not keep them waiting." So they're obviously expected.
Yep.
Right. Anything to add on that one before I move on?
Not really. There's not really a whole lot, in my opinion, to dissect there. We already kind of talked about it. Lady Morgan is still on her high throne because she thinks she's, better than everyone else.
Oh, yeah, very arrogant.
Yeah, and Balon is still being very stoic because he already knows what he's doing, and he already knows he has the upper hand. No one else knows that he has the upper hand. He's confident, and then you got his apprentice who is just this cute little ball of rage, destruction. So, not a whole lot to deconstruct there.
Well, back to Sabine and Shin and some droids. They're escorting Sabine out of her cell. We cut to the transport ship with all of them aboard, and they're going through the atmosphere under the surface of this planet. Kind of seems a bit just run down, abandoned. Kind of cool shots. You have some rivers and some pillars that you see. Pretty cool shots, but definitely abandoned and just looks deserted.
Yeah.
They land on top of this large tower. And as they walk up, you see these three, what we assume are these Dathomiri witches waiting for them. They have these three spheres and are doing like a Pink Floyd light show. I don't know what. They're not really sure what they're doing, but whatever. They point out that Morgan heard their call to her, within their dream visions, whatever it is. Shin whispers to Balon, "More witches." Right? Yeah. Obviously kind of paranoid. He kind of just like raises his eyebrow, like, "Shut the fuck up. Like, we got a plan here. Like, don't freak out. Yeah, they're witches. We don't like them, but whatever." Morgan asks, "Where is Thrawn?" And one of the witches kind of snaps at her, and "You will wait, he is coming." Then says, "It reeks of Jedi," and another one tells her that it's dangerous, just referring to Sabine as an it.
Yeah.
But they send the Pink Floyd light show spheres over to Sabine and cage her in this like laser light thing. One
Another
of the
Pink
witches,
Floyd light show.
yeah, another one. And one of the witches says it will wait in solitude. And the spheres basically take her away, and she yells back at Balin, "We had a deal. Where is Ezra?" And Balin looks irritated. Like this is not what he expected, but he's not going to interfere, right? He has a plan. He's very smart. He's calculating. He definitely is kind of looking a little worried, impatient with them. Like this is not what we came here to do, but kind of lets it slide, right? And that's it for that one.
Yeah. So these Night Sisters are really cool. They are also mimicking what is it? The Greek seers of Hades.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, it's from like Hercules or whatever. You see that?
Yeah.
You know.
So all three of, I forget what all three of their names are. And I'm not gonna be able to speak super accurately to this because obviously me and names don't work very well. But so all three of their names are inspired by the names of the three seers that work for Hades in Greek mythology. So they're essentially that, which is interesting that the planet's name is Perdia because that is also a play off of the word perdition, which is another like word for being in hell. Which, once again, interesting that it's a Purgil graveyard. So it's all... And, I mean, Star Wars has always been kind of like that. Like, Darth Vader is Latin for Dark Father. So, like, it's cool that the writers of this show are still reaching in to, like, ancient mythology to come up with the way that they name things and the way that they portray certain characters. To me, it's just really cool. I'm not, like, a huge history buff, but I am a huge fan of like medieval and or ancient mythologies or theologies, like gods and stuff. Like I really like the Greek gods. I really like Egyptian gods. Like they're all really cool like stories and stuff to look into. So it's cool that they're still doing that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And now we finally get to the point where Morgan is set down a peg or two because these Night Sisters are just like, you ain't shit, lady. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I think she thought she was going to be like welcomed as like this hero.
Yeah,
like they were going to praise her, and they're like, he'll come when he gets here.
Yeah, it's like
sit down.
You speak when spoken to. Sit down.
Yep.
And then we still have Balon, who's like, I wasn't necessarily expecting this exactly, but we'll let it play out.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I don't know what these witches can do, but...
well, I mean, he probably does know what they can do because the Jedi have dealt with Night Sisters before, and that's part of the problem is Night Sister magic has been very effective at combating against Jedi powers. And so, like, he knows he's kind of, like, at a match here. Like, this isn't something that he can just... like snap his fingers, swing a lightsaber around, maybe do a few force pushes and be done with the issue.
Right.
Like this isn't something he can just overcome willy-nilly. Plus, they're clearly working for Thrawn, who is like, if we're really gonna bring it to its roots, Thrawn's his real employer. Like Thrawn and these Night Sisters are the ones that orchestrated all of this, so they're working for Thrawn, which means he's also working for them, and he knows this.
Yeah. Back to Balon and Shin. They're on top of the tower, seemingly alone. Balon's kind of brooding and staring off in the distance. And Shin comes up to him and asks, what is it, Master? And Balon says, this is a land of dreams and madness. Children's stories come to life. And Shin says she knows no such stories, obviously, because she's a lot younger than he is. But Balon explains that at the Jedi Temple, the stories of this galaxy are considered just folktales. Balon tells her a story about when he was slightly older than she is now. He watched everything he knew burn. I'm assuming referring to Order 66, right? The whole fall of the Jedi Order. He does say that he couldn't make sense of it at the time, but as he got older and as he looked at history, he realized that it's all inevitable. The fall of the Jedi, rise of the Empire, it repeats itself again and again. And Shin ambitiously says, "Isn't it our turn now?" And pointing out that their alliance to Thrawn is going to give them power. And Balon basically shrugs that off and says that what he is seeking is the beginning, so he can bring the cycle to an end. And he tells Shin that the old stories are true. If the old stories are true, that the beginning, whatever he's searching for, whatever the beginning is here, either on this planet or in this galaxy. I guess we don't really know yet. And so he's basically pulling a Daenerys, right? He's trying to break the wheel, as she says in Game of Thrones, right? She's trying to bring the cycle to an end. And we saw how that worked for Daenerys, right?
Well, she came from a long bloodline of mentally broken individuals. So I feel like if maybe George R.R. Martin was better at writing the end of his stories, maybe she would have had a better ending. But
well, if he even finished the end of his stories.
Yes. But I feel like had she been able to overcome the mental instability of her family line, maybe she wouldn't have gone.
And possibly the inbreeding.
Well, definitely the inbreeding did not happen. But, maybe she could have had a better ending if she didn't go full on murder hobo. But back to Star Wars. One thing I liked about this scene is other than the starfighter scene a couple episodes ago, this is the first time that you see her and she's not this little ball of rage. She is very much this inquisitive child. And you can even see it, like she's got like stars in her eyes and she's like curious and she's almost happy, right? You don't really see a whole lot of her being happy in this show, but because she's just like talking to her master. Not.
But you can tell like your point is right. Like she is a true Padawan. That's
well,
who
not
she's
not
looking to. Well, you know what I mean.
Padawan, but she's having an honest to God moment with her mentor.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and in a way that she's learning something that doesn't necessarily have to do with murdering and destroying people.
Did you notice that she's got the braid or whatever, the Padawan braid?
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
I think so like Balon said, is he likes the idea of the Jedi. He just doesn't like the flaws that the Jedi Council brought to them. So he's training her kind of like a Padawan. Obviously, he's letting her dip into like rage and the dark side of things, but he's also training her in essentially the only way he knows how, which is the way that he was trained.
He's a Jedi. Realistically, there's no sense about them.
At his roots, he is. Yeah. And what I think he's really looking for, and I think we've talked about it a little bit in other episodes, but he's looking for the Jedi, like the original, before the Sith and Jedi. He's looking for like the original dudes that started sensing the Force and based essentially like a religion around it.
I have my own opinions about that, but I think we're going to save that for episode 8 because I think you may be right, but I think he's looking for something else.
Well, there are deeper and darker beings that he could be in search of. And I think we can do a whole episode going back and forth on what we think he's really looking for.
Yeah.
But at this point, after seeing this episode and after seeing the whole series, I think he's looking for the origin of the Jedi before they switched or before they split to the Sith and Jedi. Mm-hmm. And so he's looking for the beginning, and that's what he says. He says, "I want to go back to the beginning." Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So. He's looking for in my opinion, he's looking for the start of everything. And I think it's with the purpose of figuring out where everything went wrong.
Yeah.
But that's my 2 cents. I thought it was a cool scene.
No, it's cool.
I liked that our cute little rage ball wasn't so ragey in this little moment.
Wait, and that's what this series does really well. Whether you have issues with it or not, the dialogue is there. I think it's pretty good. I don't. At least I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I thought that was dumb. You know what I mean? I think all the dialogue is pretty spot on.
The only dialogue that I have issues with is stuff that we'll get to later in this episode. So let's continue.
Yeah. All right, Sabine in her cell trying to use the Force to open that door, right? She's got her hand out trying to see if she can open the door, and everything starts rattling, shaking. Obviously, you find out it's not her, and you see Thrawn's starship, Star Destroyer. What do we call that? Is that starship, Star Destroyer?
That is Thrawn's personal Star Destroyer. It's really seeing that for the first time almost gave me almost like goosebumps. It was so cool. It's the ship that he has throughout all of Rebels. If you watch Rebels,
yep.
And I like that you see that the ship has been through it. It's got all these craters.
You can see that it's like hastily put back together, right? It's just in pretty rough shape, patched back.
I wouldn't say hastily because whatever they fixed it with is something that looks very similar to solid friggin' gold. It probably isn't
on that planet.
It probably isn't actually gold. It's probably some sort of rare metal or powerful metal that looks like yellow/gold in hue. But he definitely put time into repairing it. But he also definitely only repaired essential stuff. Like he didn't just put a whole bunch of superficial plating on this to make it look cool. He repaired it with the best materials he could find as efficiently as he could.
Right. Well, you see this Star Destroyer starship or land over the tower, right? And as it lowers itself on the tower where all these people are, you see like a battalion of stormtroopers with like the red striping, whatever it is. I guess that's pretty much signaling that that's Thrawn's personal army. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure, but one of them has this like gold face, gold coloring on him. We find out that's Enoch. I think it's the captain of his guard, right? It's his right hand man.
I think that's the only named Imperial soldier.
Yeah. Thrawn approaches. We finally meet him, right? The blue skin, the red eyes, very like a powerful presence. He still looks pretty sharp in that uniform. You can see it's a little rough, not torn, but you can see a little smudge. But he's definitely taking care of himself.
Yeah. Well, kind of.
Well, He says, "What was first just a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us." And he thanks Morgan and explains that Enoch will oversee the cargo transfer as per his agreement with the Great Mothers. And the Great Mothers tell Thrawn that they have brought a prisoner. Balon steps up and tells Thrawn that he brought the prisoner, and Thrawn recognized Balon's name and refers to him as General Balon Skull of the Jedi Order. And Balon explains that he parted ways with the Jedi long ago, and Morgan tells Thrawn that the prisoner is Sabine Wren. Thrawn obviously recognizing that name, right? If you've seen Rebels, he knows who that is. And he agrees that she will be of use, like Balon suggests.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So do you think Thrawn's kind of jabbing at Balon a little bit about the Jedi, or he's just recognizing him as like, okay, you're moved on from that now? Or do you think he's like hesitantly to use him, trust him? I don't think he's ever going to trust him, but
I think so. So first we'll pick apart the scene, and then we'll get into why Shane is very upset with how Disney did this.
Okay, go ahead.
So I don't think Thrawn is making a jab at the Skull. I think that both of these two guys are tacticians through and through.
Yeah.
And Obviously Balon has already said that he thinks she'll be useful, and Thrawn also sees the usefulness of her. So I think they're just like on a mutual understanding at this point. Like, yeah,
Right.
we brought her here for a reason, and okay, cool. I can see how like that's justified,
Yeah.
Which speaks to the tactful mind of Thrawn. That's what he's known for. He's a tactician, one of the greatest tacticians. He comes from a race of beings that are all known for being very skilled tacticians, and among them, he's still one of the best. So he is supposedly a genius, essentially. Like he's a prodigy, even amongst his own people. And so I think that little talk between those two is just them having an understanding. He
Kind
paid
of like a
his
mutual respect type.
mutual
deal.
respect thing. He also paid respects to Morgan, which that's kind of who he is, right? As he gives respect when respect is due. Morgan definitely orchestrated this whole thing, building this giant ship, getting the right people on board, getting the ship to him to help bring him back to the galaxy that they're trying to go to. So, like, yeah, we've already discussed that Morgan's pretty low on the totem pole as far as how much people truly respect her and where she really lies in authority. But it took a lot of work getting all of the right gears in place to make this happen. And so he's, all right, cool, good job. He's given her an attaboy, if you will.
Right.
Now, the things that I don't like is that so far at least, it gets far worse as far as Thrawn is concerned. This dude walks up, and much like Boba in the Book of Boba Fett, he's like kind of chunky. Now, granted, I know he's been stranded out here for like ever, but Thrawn is a military mastermind who is also extremely proficient in martial arts and very focused on like physical competency. So to have this sort of blubbery dude who's kind of like hunched, like he's got his hands behind his back and he's all hunched over, and you can see like at his waist, like his fat rolls are kind of like hanging over.
Are you fat shaming Thrawn?
100%.
You're going to be canceled by Thrawn supporters.
I hope so. If I'm canceled by people who love Thrawn, then I'm being canceled by the right people. All right. If I'm being canceled by the people that love this rendition of Thrawn, then I'm being canceled by the right people. Thrawn is like he's very sharp in both mind and body, right? Because he understands the tactical need to be on par in a physical confrontation. Being a general from the seat of a spacecraft is not like the only thing he needs to know how to do. And so Thrawn, if you read any of the books, and even if you look at how he's depicted in Rebels, he is a very fit individual. He's ready to fight mentally and physically. So the fact that they brought an actor on board who I think did a decent job, right? He's I don't remember that actor's name. He's a good actor.
He was that guy who played I can't remember his name, but he was in The Witcher. He plays one of the sorcerer guys or whatever the hell on that. Yeah, you'd recognize him if you saw it. But yeah. No, he's a good actor.
I don't think the body type of the person that they picked fit who Thrawn really was. I
don't think I've seen the actor before. I don't think he himself is.
Maybe it's
there's anything wrong with that, but I think that was a choice that Disney made.
Well, it's a bad choice.
I mean, you got to think though. I mean, devil's advocate, right? He's been stranded there for 10 years with nothing to do.
He's got an entire legion to train with.
Yeah.
With nothing to do, he's got plenty of time to train.
Maybe he just had some depression and, he got banished to like this other galaxy.
That's not who Thrawn is,
Listen,
Thrawn,
mental health affects everybody, Shane.
Not Thrawn. Thrawn is an infallible, like,
War
tactical
criminal.
badass. Well, yeah, obviously, but tactical badass,
Yeah.
both physically and mentally. So I don't like how they made him kind of pudgy a little bit. I guess is my first gripe right now. Um, and he's a little too smiley. There are times where, or not even just smiley, but almost like emotional. There are times where Thrawn is like very proud of an accomplishment that he makes, and he gets a little happy or excited about that. But for the most part, he's very cold and calculating. So the fact that we have this red eye blue dude, this little chunky red eye blue dude, just grinning ear to ear, walking around like, "Hey guys, like thanks for coming to the party. It's a good time." Like that's not, at least that's not how I envision Thrawn.
Yeah.
That's not how he's depicted in the show. That's not how he was ever depicted in any of the books. And sure, maybe Disney's trying to do their own thing with him, but that is not,
As they usually do.
yeah, that's not what I was expecting, and maybe that's part of the problem, is because I was expecting to see something that's already been done,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It didn't sit right with me.
I personally didn't really have a big problem with it, but I don't have like a big connection to Thrawn like other fans do. I didn't really invest a lot of time into Rebels, and I didn't read any of the books. So when I saw him, I thought he's kind of a powerful presence. You can tell he's a very calculating. I don't know what the word. He's not like a stand-up guy, but he's definitely like a respectable. Like you're gonna listen up when he comes into a room, type of guy. You know what I mean? He has that presence about him. I thought it was kind of cool, and I think he portrayed that pretty well.
I would agree with that. He does have a powerful presence, and obviously there is a reason this entire legion stuck with him throughout this entire time that they've been stranded in this galaxy, right? So,
and I actually have a question about that too, because I don't know, and I think we get to a little bit of it where he makes some comments about his forces dwindling a little bit. But do you think? And I don't think they even really dive into this, but do you think all those stormtroopers are like living?
at this point, yes. We definitely see later on where maybe not so much. But it does look like they've all been through the ringer.
But like, how do you afford or even find food on this like basically abandoned planet to feed all of these stormtroopers? Like that's, I don't know, man. I'm just wondering if it's like another Merrick situation where a lot of, maybe not all of them, but maybe a lot of them are like reanimated Merrick guys of these like witch magic.
At this point, there might be some that are being propped up by Night Sister magic, maybe, but I don't think that's a lot at all by any means. I think that these guys, they probably at first were living off of the ration stores on Imperial Destroyers, or on this Imperial Destroyer, which they are very heavily stocked. So it's probably self-sustaining for a very long time. It might even be self-sustaining indefinitely. I don't know what kind of.
It's a massive ship, right? So it could have some kind of like it has a garden center or whatever.
I mean, it sounds silly to talk about, but like these Star Destroyers can house hundreds of thousands of people, right? When you count in all like the workers and the soldiers, the engineers, the pilots, and all of those other stuff that goes into running a starship, like they have the ability to feed and house all these people. I'm sure they have the ability to make food, but we do see planet side that although this planet looks abandoned, it's not desolate. Like there is food.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
there are creatures they can hunt for meat. There are plants that can be grown for vegetation.
We see in a little bit there's actually other like what do they call? I think they called them like nomads or something like that. There's like factions of these things.
Yeah.
Right?
So there are other resources on this planet, and I'm sure there's other planets in this galaxy that might be more or even less plentiful as far as resources are concerned. I mean, he's on a Star Destroyer. He can definitely do a hyperspace jump and go to like these different places. So
That'll be interesting to find out if he has or not, you know what I mean. I don't think we'll ever get to that point, but if there's anything else that they brought with them, which that's another thing we'll get to. You know what the hell that cargo is, right?
Yeah, I do like how like battle hardened or battle worn everyone looks. Like you can definitely tell, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but these guys have all been through the ringer, so they're not just sitting on this Star Destroyer chilling for like these 10+ years that they've been stranded here. They've been fighting. They've been on the ground doing work. Every single one of these Imperial soldiers has some sort of blemish or scar on their armor. Once again, mostly fixed with this like golden material, so it's got to play some sort of significance eventually. It doesn't. They don't really talk about it too much in this season, but it's got to play some sort of significant role because basically everything has been fixed with this singular material. So it's just they all look real cool. The dude with the golden face, what did we say his name was again? Enoch. Like he looks super dope with his gold face and everything. He must have done something impressive to have been given this unique helmet. But I think the Imperials all look cool. I don't think most of them, or I really don't think at this point any of them are being kept alive with Night Sister magic, because we see how later they act when they are influenced by the Night Sister magic. But it's still really cool.
Yeah. All right, Sabine is escorted to Thrawn. He thanks her for his escape from exile, as he should. It's pretty much all her fault. She ignores that and asks, where's Ezra? She's obviously just concerned about Ezra at this point. Yep. He says he intends to honor Balon's agreement with Sabine. Sabine is surprised that Thrawn is going to just let her go, and Thrawn does tell her that once his starship departs, you will be stranded here forever. He also says that it is possible that Ezra is dead. Sabine, because we have not seen him yet, obviously. It's very possible that he is dead. He's not there, right? You don't know at this point if they've had any contact since he's been there. Sabine says, with a lot of attitude, if you survived, I'm sure he's doing just fine. And Thrawn says, you've gambled the fate of your galaxy on that belief. Which is kind of how I feel about her this entire time. Exactly how Thrawn feels. Like, he knows like how selfish and pretty dumb she was to make the decision she's made. Not that he's not grateful. You know, it's definitely in his benefit. But he's kind of looking at her like, you child.
Yeah,
you know, you can't see the big picture, right?
Well, he's also an ends, and we've talked about this. He's an ends justify the means type of person. Yeah. Had he been in her shoes, he definitely wouldn't have done this.
No.
Because he is like a cold, calculating tactician, and tactically, it makes no sense to allow one of your enemy's greatest generals to come back into play. So he just doesn't respect her because he thinks she made a very tactically dumb decision.
Yeah.
And that's really what he cares about.
And he just doesn't understand that kind of thinking.
Right? Yeah, no. His people in general are people that don't base decisions off of emotion. Yeah. They base their decisions off of pros and cons and what the outcome will be if they do, one thing or the other. They're almost like mathematical in their thinking. And so he doesn't get the emotional aspect of it. And he even, when he says that he doesn't understand, like, you can almost see a glimmer of regret when he says that.
Yeah, I get that. You definitely see that.
That does sort of fall in line with Ron, at least in the books, right? He does want to understand what this emotional connection that other beings have, because he doesn't have that. He's like, well, I don't know how to really say it in a way that's not going to get us canceled. But he doesn't understand emotions. It's not something, he doesn't feel them. Yeah. I think part of him kind of wants to, so he can understand them, but he doesn't feel them. He doesn't truly understand them. He doesn't get them. And part of him wants to, not a big part of him, right? He much prefers being successful and being right. But he also is curious.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just because if he knew, he would be smarter and able to like work around that more, because that's always been one of his pitfalls, like in the books, is he'll sort of forego people's emotions and then not realize when that's what trips him up, is when people care about certain things that he doesn't understand why they would care about them. It's really the only way that anyone's ever beat him is by like caring about stuff that he feels like is insignificant, and so he'll write something off, and that's how people are able to outmaneuver him. But even then, more often than not, he's even able to catch on to that, not because he feels those emotions, but because he understands that other people feel them, and so he plans around it. But really, like that's the only way to beat him is to like care about things that he thinks is insignificant and trip him up that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Thrawn's basically letting her go only because he can get something out of it. So I mean, it is what it is.
Well, Sabine approaches her sweet new ride, which is like this half bat, half direwolf, I guess is like the best way to describe this.
I would have went with I think direwolf is good, but horse. I think direwolf mixed with horse.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like with like the face of a bat. Like that's what his face looks like.
Honestly, when I was looking at it, I was thinking more hyena. That like
okay,
really reminded me of like a hyena.
Yeah.
But direwolf sort of works too, although it sort of laughs, kind of in some of these scenes. You know, they
yeah.
kind of
it's more of like a dog, like a giant dog.
They kind of personify him, so he's more like this hyena dog horse hybrid thing that I think is ugly cute, because that's
I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, he's definitely cool, and he does some kind of funny cool shit. So yeah. It's typical Disney where they add something that is meant to be cute because it gets viewers, and I hate that it works. I mean, we all know how I feel about the sequel trilogy, but although this shirt is faded, it's a Porg shirt because I think Porgs are cool as shit. And that's just something that Disney added because it was cute and catchy, and I hate how cute and catchy it is, but Porgs are super cool. I like Porgs, and I like these hyena wolf horses too. They're also pretty cool.
The hyena wolf horse.
Yeah.
Well, Enoch warns her of the nomads and gives her all her weapons, including her lightsaber back, and says, "Die well."
Yeah.
The doors open and she takes off. She leaves.
That was so that "die well," that's a phrase. I don't know if that's in another show or if that's a phrase that you hear from other like Storm or clone troopers, but it's familiar to me. And I meant to like do some research on that phrase, but I didn't because apparently I'm lazy. So
yeah, it is what it is.
But it's a cool phrase. I just recognize it from somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I recognize it too, but I don't remember if it's from a Star Wars thing or if it's just something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We'll know like whenever people finally start commenting on these videos, they're going to tell us and we're going to feel stupid. So it'll
hey,
all
you
work
dumb
out in the
fucks. Like it's from this.
Yeah. Like, oh, you're right. You didn't need to call me dumb, but you are right.
Yeah. Thrawn, Morgan, Shin, and Balon watch Sabine from like a balcony of some sorts as she takes off. Shin says that she's on a fool's errand, and Thrawn agrees and tells them to follow Sabine. Balon agrees, insinuating that they've already had this prior discussion without Shin's knowledge.
Yeah.
And because she seems surprised and says to Balon, "I thought you were going to honor your agreement." And Balon doesn't say anything, and Thrawn answers for him and says that he shall. Sabine will have the opportunity to find Ezra, then tells her if she does, you both will destroy them.
Yeah. So I've watched this scene like 3 times now, and every time I watch it, it does feel like Thrawn and Balon had a prior discussion about this. But I don't really think they have. I think this is two tacticians that at this point are like they're really in sync. I mean, we already
just
heard
understand
before.
each other.
Yeah, they just understand where each other's minds are at. They understand what the goals are, and so Balon's not surprised. Thrawn's not surprised. They're both just like, "Yep, this is the logical next step."
And Balon doesn't push back at all. He's just nods his head. This is what, and he actually kind of just walks away. Like he does look irritated that's what he is basically being ordered to do, but he doesn't push back at all. He kind of listens to Shin bicker at him a little bit or question him a little bit, and then he just kind of turns around and walks away.
Because Balon's not an assassin, and essentially that's what Thrawn is asking him to be, is an assassin. Yeah. Balon doesn't want to go out of his way killing people. We've already seen it in other episodes, and we've discussed that. Balon is not out here trying to kill as many people as he can and create as much havoc as he can. Mm-hmm. He's too goal oriented for that.
We even see in like the first scene of the first episode of the series, like he even when they arrive on that ship, he like just unleashes Shin on everybody, and he doesn't really do a whole lot.
Yeah, he blocks a bunch of stuff, but he lets her do a lot of the slaughter because he's not like that's not who he is. At the core, he's still a Jedi. Now, he doesn't agree with the Jedi Council and the way that the Jedi Council ran things, but he's still a Jedi at the core. He still believes in peace, which I don't think anyone really gets that from him. I think even Shin doesn't think that that's what he really wants. But what he truly wants, we've kind of seen so far, what he truly wants is peace. He wants all the murdering to stop. He wants all the wars to stop. That's what he means when he says he wants to break the cycle. He's tired of one political sort of organization warring against another to get control. Like he doesn't want any of that. He wants peace. He wants prosperity. He wants everyone to just get along. You know, he's tired of all the killing. Balon is willing to do bad things to make a good thing happen, like a truly good thing. Whereas Thrawn is willing to do bad things to make what he perceives to be a good thing happen. Balon wants like intrinsically good things to happen, and he's willing to do not good things to accomplish that goal.
Yeah. So Sabine gets ambushed on her journey out into the wilderness here by these nomads, right? She's shot several times, but thankfully she has this Mandalorian armor, can essentially deflect anything, including lightsabers, we find out. But she gets knocked down, pulls out her lightsaber, and cuts them all down except for one of them, and he kind of runs off. She just lets him go.
So, quick pause. I know, like, you're like, oh, her armor can deflect lightsabers. So this is something that Disney added to lore. Mandalorian armor is made out of Beskar. You see that in the show Mandalorian. Beskar is resistant to lightsaber blades. Now, I don't think that has ever really been a thing in any other Star Wars material, although I do think that it's a cool addition because the Mandalorians throughout the years have perfected the art of fighting and defeating Jedi, and it would make sense that they have designed an armor that resists Jedi lightsabers because that's the main thing that they use for offense.
Right.
Really, it's the only thing they use for offense because the Jedi believe in you wielding the Force for defensive purposes only. Mandalorian armor is super, super resistant to blaster bolts. It's super resistant to lightsabers. I believe the First Order armor in the prequel trilogy uses a Beskar alloy that is also resistant to that kind of stuff. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, that's cool. Yeah. Back to Thrawn's ship, we see the troopers loading this cargo. Now, I'm sure you have an opinion on this, because I truly don't know what all this is, but it looks like they're loading a ton of coffins. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. That looks like coffins.
I mean,
Um,
they're about the right size and shape for coffins. They're also the right size and shape for anything. So
yeah,
it could be bodies in there, it could be munitions in there, it could be rations in there. Um, if I'm going to be real honest, I think it's sloppy writing. I think they just needed a reason for these guys to have to stay here longer, because why would Thrawn not already have his spaceship loaded up and ready to go once his
well, I think
help
maybe that
arrived?
was the deal he was referring to with the Great Mother. So maybe that was the deal. He could have whatever this cargo is once those ships are there and they escape with him, and that was kind of the deal. That's how I read it. Like that's why they had all this cargo. Like that's not his cargo. It's something coming from the Great Mothers,
Yeah,
or I think that's what he's calling them, right?
but if you really want to succeed on this plan, get out of this galaxy as soon as possible. Like the mothers could have had this stuff loaded before
Yeah,
and just had it somewhere secluded so no one could mess with it.
that's very true.
We don't know what it is, so maybe that will be made more clear in
Like
season
why
two
that
if that
wasn't the
happens.
case. Yeah,
But from a tactical standpoint, which we all know that Thrawn is the most tactical guy uh, in existence, why would you not have your stuff already loaded up?
that's a fair point.
There are, and we'll get there, especially in future episodes of this. There are so many tactical downfalls, and at the end of this, I will give my theory on what I think Thrawn's real goals are. But if Thrawn's true goal is to get back, jumpstart the Empire, and take over the galaxy as quickly as he can and as efficiently as he can, there is, from the knowledge that we're given so far, even towards the end of this series, no reason why this stuff wouldn't already be on his ship so that he can
Yeah, I agree with
just
that.
dock up and take off. Like, it doesn't make sense
Yeah,
tactically.
that's true. All right, so Thrawn and Morgan they're looking at this star map, and Enoch approaches them and tells Thrawn that Balon and Shin have left. Thrawn tells him to prepare 2 attack squads and wait for Balon's signal. And then Morgan says, "Should we not send more troops to support them?" Basically, questioning his authority, like she thinks she can do. Um, you see Thrawn kind of pause and almost like collect himself and says, "During this exile, our numbers have dwindled. So no, 2 squads will suffice." Tells her nothing else matters, essentially. Nothing else matters except for escaping this place. So there's no
Yeah.
need to send all this extra. And this is where you kind of start really seeing how small she is and
Yeah.
what Thrawn really thinks of her. Like it's just a means to an end.
Which, once again, I mean, she's kind of right.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely not wrong.
He definitely, if his goal is to get off of this planet by all means necessary, it would actually make sense if he either sent more fighters or no fighters and had his stuff already loaded up in the frickin' ship.
Yeah.
He could have just expelled all of the Jedi, Balon and company included, and
Yeah,
gone.
some of this, like these tactical decisions where he's supposed to be this
Yeah.
like mastermind, doesn't make much sense. I mean, I'm not a military guy either, but I mean, I can tell you that I would not have gone about it the way he's going about it. You know what I mean?
Honestly, the second half of this series, and when I say second half, I mean once Thrawn gets into the picture, I feel like the writing went kind of downhill,
Yeah,
because
I agree.
they are slacking on who and what Thrawn is in order to make time to create more episodes. Um,
Or the
At
movie
least
that they're apparently working on.
I don't want them to do a movie. I really
I think
need a show.
I could be wrong about this, but I believe they have there are talks about doing a movie and not another like season of this. But I could be wrong. That's what I've heard.
I mean, I don't know if this will play well in a movie.
I
And
don't
I
know.
feel like if they do a movie, they're going to do like a quick wrap up that once again isn't going to make a whole lot of sense. Um, I just like this scene here. Sort of, I didn't agree with it. Um, Morgan was right. If his goal is to kill, um,
Sabine,
not even Sabine, the other one,
Ezra.
Ezra. If his goal is to kill Ezra, then he knows better than anyone else that two little freaking starfighters is not nearly enough.
Yeah.
It's just not. Like he's dealt with that.
The only thing
a-
I can tell. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
The
go
only
ahead.
thing I can see if he truly doesn't give a shit. Sorry, if he truly doesn't give a shit about actually killing them, he could just be sending these two squads just as a distraction because he does know that Ezra is pretty powerful in the Force. Him and Sabine together, they could come after them and prevent them from escaping. Maybe these two squads he's just sending to die as just a distraction, just to slow them down. I could somewhat see that, but again, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
So I keep saying I'm going to hold off, but I don't really think I can anymore. I don't think Thrawn's true goal, if this is the tactical genius Thrawn from the books, I don't think Thrawn's goal is to leave Ezra behind, and I don't think his goal is to kill Ezra. I think him and Ezra made a deal because, and we're going to go off on a small tangent here, so I'm sorry, but Thrawn joined the Empire to save his people. He didn't join the Empire because he thought the Empire was right. In fact, Thrawn did not like the Emperor. And Thrawn respected Vader, but also did not agree with Vader's tactics because although Thrawn is a ends justify the means kind of guy, Thrawn is not a murder entire civilizations kind of guy. He all he really wants is to save his people. His people at the beginning of the Empire's reign are being attacked by an alien species called the Chiss, and his people are unable to defeat the Chiss on their own. And so when he goes and basically beseeches to the Emperor, like, hey, I will do everything that I can to help you if you then use your resources to save my people. The Emperor says, yes, and Thrawn gets fast-tracked on the route to becoming a general, gets his own starship and all this stuff. We've already talked about how xenophobic the Empire was, but essentially he is just given all of this authority and command by the Emperor so that he can take out the Emperor's enemies so that the Empire can then go and save Thrawn's people. Now that the Empire is essentially gone, that deal is off the table. Thrawn has, if we're going off of the books, Thrawn has no motivation to rejoin and or restart the Empire. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, does he even, at this point, does he even know that the entire... I can't remember how Rebels ended, but does he know that the Empire is, like, completely destroyed?
So when Rebels ended, that is, like, kind of where the actual Rebels gain power and become a force that the Empire is, like, finally taking seriously. But the Empire is still very strong, very much in control. So, but I still feel like Thrawn has to know somehow, some way. I'm not sure. He's got to know that the Empire is not a real thing anymore. And if he doesn't know, it would still it would make sense that he wants to go to this galaxy and talk to the Emperor and like regain that support for his people. But he's not acting like somebody who knows one thing or the other. This show does not make that clear. But Thrawn is very much just a man on a personal mission to save his own people. If what he thinks is best is getting the Empire's help, then allowing Ezra to survive makes no sense. Allowing Ezra to have any chance of getting back on his ship whatsoever makes no sense. He should send all of his people after Ezra.
Yeah. If that's what he really wanted, right?
Exactly. And it wouldn't cost him too many resources. He's got all these ships, right? He should have as many of these starfighters that he's got people to be in to go out there, and the second he finds Ezra, just bomb him. Just do strafing runs until there's literally nothing left. That would be the tactical decision. He's got the resources for it. It's not going to cost him anything. Like, that's what would make tactical sense. But he doesn't do that. He sends 2 starfighters and a couple of what he sees as Jedi mercenaries after these dudes, and thinks that's going to cut it. When in a few other scenes, he doesn't even believe that Ahsoka's alive, because the Jedi can just essentially do whatever, even though it doesn't make any sense. Like, he understands that Jedi have these weird powers to break the rules of existence. So, like, he's not stupid. He knows what the Jedi are capable of, and he especially knows what Ezra's capable of because he's been living with him on this planet for like 10 years. So it makes no sense to me that he just sends 2 starfighters. Ahsoka took out 2 starfighters standing on the wing of a starfighter in the middle of space, or on the wing of her own ship in the middle of space. She took out 2 of those guys with a lightsaber. So it just doesn't make sense to me. This is kind of where, I'm really hoping for a season 2 that makes sense of all of this, because this is just one of a plethora of very poor decisions that Thrawn makes. Yeah. And there's only 2 reasons for it. 1, he's not trying to help the Empire, or 2, whoever wrote this show did a very poor job in the second half.
Unfortunately, I'm thinking it's probably the latter, but maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm hoping there's a season 2. I heard there's going to be a season 2 of Obi-Wan, and a lot of people didn't like that series, and I liked it. So,
well, there really can't be a season 2 of Obi-Wan. We kind of wrapped that up.
I keep seeing things about that. Maybe it's just like wishful thinking from people, but I heard there was going to be a season 2.
Season 2 of Obi-Wan is essentially episode 4. Episode 4. Maybe at the end of Kenobi, he essentially has accepted his role as Luke's distant and unseen guardian. And when you start on episode 4, he is Luke's distant, unseen guardian that is now ready to teach him the ways of the Force. So unless there are some like weird assassins that jump onto Tatooine, and that's what season 2 is all about, is him just fighting those guys off. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Obi-Wan's a hermit in hiding. So if he starts just offing people using the Force, then he's making his presence known, which he can't do.
Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, once people start announcing, things, once Disney starts announcing different movies, show, whatever, I guess we'll see when we come to it. All right, let's get back into it.
Yeah.
I've been off on this tangent long enough, right?
Sorry.
Sabine is basically... No, you're fine. It was me too. Sabine is basically chastising her hyena dog horse for abandoning her. I think we're calling it a howler, is what I saw. I actually got that from the subtitles.
I guess we kind of jumped past the scene where she got jumped by the dudes that Enoch.
No, we went over that.
Did we? Okay,
Yeah,
maybe I was just too engrossed in my hate for how they are doing this part of the show.
No, you're fine. So the howler keeps following her around. Finally, she kind of gives in, gives him another chance so he can come back with her.
Well, he's such a cute, good boy, He made one mistake.
They're kind of just out there in the wilderness, just stomping around, and the howler gets a scent of something. Like he's sniffing around, and she thinks he's a hound dog now, and so they follow this scent that he has.
Yeah.
They get to this point where there's just a bunch of rocks, right? and this like hermit crab person just pops up out of this rock and runs away. Tries to hide as a rock again, which was pretty funny. As they're like watching him,
she's like, I know that
you're not going to get me again. Yeah, you tried that one already. The Howler really wants to eat him. We think, right? He wants to attack him or something. You don't know what to do.
He hungry.
And the hermit crab alien guy recognizes the symbol on Sabine's shoulder as the symbol of the rebels or whatever you want to call it.
He recognizes it. Well, I mean that is a symbol for the Rebel Alliance, but he just recognizes it because Ezra's wearing it, and I guess
we don't know that at this point, right?
And you see that when you see the rest of them, they all have a necklace with that symbol on it.
Yeah, and so she asks if he knows Ezra. She sees that he has one, like a necklace around his neck. Sees that symbol, after a bunch of them kind of pop up around them as these like rock crab people.
I like this part of the scene because it does sort of pan back to our hyena wolf horse, and he's like, wait a minute, I only found one of you and there's so many left. You can see that sort of look of defeat on his face, like he knows that he's a failure because he did all this sniffing around and found one, but there's like 100 of them sitting there.
Yeah, all of them. You kind of insinuate that they know who Ezra is, or at least someone, right, that has this symbol, and she keeps asking, do you know Ezra Bridger? And the only thing they repeat that you can understand is Ezra's name, and then they talk in their own language.
Yeah, the subtitle is like their whatever language, like speaking in this language.
I think it was
I forget what it's called.
Nadi.
Yeah, Nadi. Yeah, speaking Nadi language.
Yeah. And so they take off, and Sabine and the hyena wolf dog horse follow, right? Balon and Shin are tracking Sabine, and Shin asks if he knows Ezra or knew him, and he says no, he's obviously too young. He came from a breed of Boken Jedi trained in the wild after the temple fell. Have you ever heard that term before, Boken Jedi?
No, I think it's a term that they made, but I kind of like it. I think it plays off of the word broken. And I think, I mean, I don't know like Star Wars languages and stuff, but I assume it's based off of a word meaning like the Jedi that were trained after the Jedi had fallen.
Yeah,
because there's a bunch of them, right? You in all the video games and the shows and some of the movies, like you see all of these Jedi, either Padawan or Knights or Masters or whatever, that have all like sort of escaped Order 66 and are then trying to do their own thing. So I think that's just the name for them. The Boken Jedi are just Force users that are trying to follow the Jedi way after the Jedi have fallen. It's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Shin, after Balon tells her this, Shin asks, like me? And Balon says, no, he was trained as a Jedi. I trained to be something more.
Yeah.
Shin asks him, do you miss the order? And Balon says, kind of pauses.
Yeah, we've already talked about this.
Actually. Yeah, we talked about this scene. Yes, I missed the idea of it, but not the truth, the weakness. There's no future there. She questions him about their future on this planet, in this area, in this wasteland. And Balon says he sees what once was a great place of the Dathomiri, now believing that because of this existence of the Great Mothers, Shin points out that they're eager to leave, and maybe they should too, right? And Balon says perhaps they flee a power greater than their own. Something calls to me. Something stirs here. And he's kind of getting like a little excited, right? Like, don't you feel it? Don't you see that? And you can kind of see she's not really getting it, right? But then these bandits arrive on like this cliff edge, and Balon says that you kind of tell Shin not to worry about him. The any of my enemies is my friend for now, right? And they kind of just leave him be. So before we go on to the next scene, you can tell that, and this is where I don't know how in depth I want to get, because we've already kind of beat this dead horse about like what Balin's after, but he's definitely getting more excited. You can kind of tell, like, even though Thrawn sent them on this mission basically to find it, you can almost tell that he's almost out there and about ready to do his own thing.
I think he's already doing his own thing.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this in, I think, the next episode, but like he's kind of doing what he was asked, but he's mostly doing, like, he came to this galaxy for a very specific reason, and that was not to find Thrawn. It was not to find Ezra. It was not to do any of that. Like, he's answering a calling that he feels inside, and that he's physically heard. Obviously, he's already saying it. Like, he is looking for something. You and I think, have slightly different opinions on. I think what you think it is what's actually calling to him. But I think what he's really looking for, I think he's mistaken. I think he's looking for the original Jedi. And I think maybe there's something more sinister that's what's actually calling to him.
And I don't know. I guess we can get into it if you want, or we can save it for the end, because really after this point we don't see too much of Balon until you kind of see where he's at in episode 8.
Yeah.
But maybe we just save it for them. But yeah, I think we're probably along the same lines of what we think's going to happen. But I think what Disney, at least what the hell's that guy's name? Filoni, or who's the guy
Filoni.
doing that? I think
it's Filoni.
I think he's definitely going to try and bring in the father, the brother, or what. I know the sister's technically dead. So anybody who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, this is something that was a Disney creation, right? About
it was in Clone Wars.
Oh, yeah. Clone Wars. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which is a Filoni creation. This isn't a
So
Lucas. This is all Filoni.
Clone Wars, the original series, is pre-Disney, Filoni creation. They added a final season to Clone Wars, still with Filoni on board, but with Disney influence. There is so essentially in the Clone Wars, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka get teleported to what is called the source of the Force. It's like this little planetary environment where the father of the Force and his two daughters, or his daughter and his son, his two kids, sort of are what creates the balance of the Force.
They basically embody the light side, and then the other one embodies the dark side of the Force.
The son embodies. Right? Yeah, the son embodies the dark side. The daughter embodies the light side. The father embodies balance. In that, it was a series of episodes. It was like 2 or 3 episodes.
Was it? I thought it was just one. I mean, I guess you're right. It was a couple.
No, it's like 2 or 3.
Okay.
And in that series, the father and the daughter die. So the balance. Who, when we're talking about the prophecy, it's made known in that series that Anakin was supposed to become the new father of the Force. Right. That's what he was chosen to do. He turns that down because had he accepted it, it would have meant the death of Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, which Anakin has still not learned how. Well, he's never learned how to let go of attachments. So he turns down his role as the father of the Force, which results in the daughter, the embodiment of the light side, dying, and the son
at the hands of the son, though, right?
Well, yeah. So the daughter, it's kind of complicated. The daughter and the son are always sort of fighting against each other, and the son is always trying to escape because he wants to go out, explore, and conquer, because that's just what he wants. But because of Anakin not accepting the role that he was destined to accept, the son escapes and the other two die. So we have this being who is the embodiment of the dark side escapes. Shortly after this is when Anakin falls to the dark side and becomes Vader, and the dark side essentially rules the galaxy for 10-20 years. And a whole bunch of other crap happens, which it's inferred that it's because the son escaped. All three of these beings aren't actual physical manifestation or actual physical beings. They have these physical manifestations for the sole purpose that these three individuals that are here are able to perceive them, like they perceive them as physical manifestations, but they're really not. All they really are is like the Force itself, right?
Yeah.
They're just aspects.
Well,
of
that's
the
what I
Force.
think Balon is searching for. I think somehow he found out, somehow he was told, or maybe he's getting some kind of visions, dreams, whatever it is, and he is there to search for whether it's I mean, I guess the father and daughter, they're dead, right? But can the Force die, technically? I mean, I know the daughter is essentially Ahsoka now. Like that she revived Ahsoka, sort of, because she was
Well, yeah,
killed.
Ahsoka keeps seeing the owl.
Yeah,
And
I think that's the last episode we see that.
Yeah,
right?
the daughter of the Force was always so the daughter and the son have a anthropomorphic manifestation. The daughter was an owl / bird, and then the son was like this bat. Now, I guess I thought, and this is my fault, but I thought you were referring to the Leviathan as far as what Balon is actually looking for, or what he's really looking for, not what he thinks he's looking for, but what it's actually calling to him. But so you think that Balon is answering essentially the call to the son of the Force?
I think he's either answering to the son, or the father is somehow calling him there. Because at the end of the season, at which we'll get to eventually, you see the statue of the father.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess we'll get to that, our kind of theories at the end. Let's get through this.
Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
And
Sorry.
we'll get to all that. No, you're fine. So Sabine and the crab people arrive at their camp. She walks around. You see Ezra, and you're standing behind her. He says, "I knew I could count on you." They just discuss briefly like what happened at the end. The last time they saw each other, the end of Rebels, right? The tragedy that was Ezra. He sacrifices himself, and they kind of briefly, talk about that. And Ezra asks, "Did it work?" And she says it worked. His sacrifice worked, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she says it works, and then they hug. Ezra starts asking questions, and she blows him off, essentially, and says, "Let's just not talk about that." And Ezra just kind of goes with it, kind of sees she definitely doesn't want to talk about anything that brought her there, because it's essentially betraying what he did to sacrifice himself to bring them to this point. And he just doesn't understand that yet. And she doesn't want to cop to it. And so he goes with it. They don't talk about it. He talks to Sabine about helping the crab people pack up camp, and says he can't wait to go home. And you see Sabine's face, which is kind of this obviously like upset, regret, guilt, whatever you want to call it.
She doesn't know how she's getting him home.
She doesn't know. Yeah. Well, yeah, she doesn't know how she's even going to discuss or broach the topic of how she got there in the first place. Not alone has she even thought about how she's going to get home yet. I don't think she's even considered how they're going to get home. Besides the only thing that she could possibly know at this point is that she's going to try and hitch a ride with Thrawn back to this other galaxy. And how the hell is she going to tell Ezra, like, "Oh, by the way, your buddy Thrawn that you sacrificed yourself to get here, we're going to go hang out with him and jump on his ship and go back to where we came from"?
Well, like, Thrawn did sort of say that was a possibility.
But he basically said that when you're leaving.
Yeah, if you want to leave, this is when we're going.
Yeah, and you will be abandoned here if you're not on the ship, is essentially what she took from that.
So once again, this once again goes back to my theory that Thrawn is not trying to join the Empire, right? He's not saying, "Hey, once you leave the ship, you're screwed." He's saying once you leave the ship, you have this many days to get back here. That's essentially what he said.
Let me ask you something.
You have this much time.
Do we have the origins of the First Order? Like, do we know how that happened and where that started? Like, could that... I wonder if that's what Thrawn's going to start. Maybe, I mean, I know you have your theories about him not joining the Empire, but maybe he gets back there and, like, he is the one who kind of starts up the First Order again.
Supposedly Snoke started the First Order.
Well, we don't really know where he came from either, do we?
Supposedly Snoke is a failed clone experiment.
Interesting.
So, this is this is gonna be a long episode. This is another tangent. So Palpatine was really big into A, cloning, B, Sith witchcraft or Sith magic, or no, Sith alchemy. Sorry. So he's big into Sith alchemy. He was big into cloning, and he wanted to combine those two things to create Force-sensitive clones. 90% of the time that he's tried to create a Force-sensitive clone, it failed. You have whoever the main character is in the what series is that? It's got the same voice actor that does Maul. There's like two video games based with it, and he's like
KOTOR?
No, he's like Vader's apprentice. He's a clone. He's Vader's apprentice. There's 2 games. I forget what his name is. I forget what the game is even called. But he's essentially a Force-sensitive clone. He's the first successful Force-sensitive clone. And then you have in the sequel trilogy where the Emperor has supposedly made a bunch of Force-sensitive clones of himself, and the one that he's currently in is like hooked up to like this whole contraption thing. Because that makes sense. But yeah, and in expanded universe, like in the books and stuff, the Emperor has cloned himself. The Emperor also wanted to clone Luke. And I don't know if it's been confirmed or if it's just theory, but Snoke is supposedly a failed clone of Luke.
No shit.
Now, in the books, there are, like, expanded universe books outside of Disney. There have been successful clones of Luke that obviously have all been defeated. But basically, the Emperor wanted to clone Luke because he sees Luke as more powerful than Vader. And Vader obviously is, like, 90% machine at this point anyways. And so even though he's like super powerful, he's not as powerful as he could be.
As Anakin.
Yeah. Or that's what I meant to say. Yeah, Darth Vader is not like as powerful as he could be anymore. So he's trying to clone Luke but clone like a dark side version of Luke. And so I don't remember if it's like a theory or something that was like released as official canon, but supposedly Snoke is a quasi-failed clone of Luke.
I hope they don't do that because that's for me that's a little too much.
It would make sense for the original Palpatine. It would also make sense for the expanded universe Palpatine.
Yeah.
It also makes sense that like Snoke did exude certain Force abilities, but obviously you never see him get out of his chair. You never see him really do much of anything other than sit there and say stupid stuff. So he looks crippled. He's got scars all over his face. His body.
You can definitely tell he's super Force sensitive. Like he can do a lot without moving. Essentially.
Yeah.
Didn't help him any.
Yeah, he can do everything except foresee that his own apprentice is trying to kill him, which makes so much sense. You know, it was like that made all the sense in the world. But anyways, yeah. So where are we at here? We kind of detracted a lot.
Yeah.
What scene were we at so I can remember why we went off on this clone tangent?
Honestly, I don't know how we got there. We're just at the end where Ezra thanks her for coming, and that he says he can't wait to go home. So I'm not sure how we got there. I'm just going to move on to the next scene. It is the last scene of the episode anyway. Thrawn is with the Great Mothers and says that you wish to speak to me. And the mothers said, the thread of fate has spoken to us. Another comes, referring to Ahsoka. We know at this point. He asked if it is Ahsoka, and Morgan says impossible. Balon killed her, and Thrawn says, Thrawn says he was once a Jedi. We must regard him as flawed, referring to Balon. And Thrawn tells Morgan he wants to know everything there is to know about Ahsoka. Who her master was, where she was trained, all that. Thrawn then turns to the mothers and says, I shall once again require the aid of your dark magic. And that's the end of chapter 6.
So I do want to say, when Thrawn says he wants to know everything about Ahsoka, I don't think he's referring to like who's her master and this kind of blah 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 blah. He already knows that because he knows who Vader is.
Well, I think he specifically says, "I want to know who her master is. I want to know." He says
Does he?
He says that in the episode. He wants to know everything there is to know.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
So,
I could be mistaken on that, but I just watched it again yesterday, and I'm pretty sure
he might say it. Now that you say that, it makes sense. But that's really, really dumb because Thrawn knows who Anakin is, and Thrawn knows who Vader is, so obviously he knows that they're the same. Yeah. We've already talked in a previous episode about how he makes jabs towards Vader.
Yeah.
So knowing who Anakin is, he obviously knows who Anakin's apprentices are, or apprentice is. So I would get behind that he wants to know what Ahsoka's been up to since she left Anakin. But for her to not know who Anakin's master is like
Ahsoka.
A huge, to not know who Ahsoka's master is like a huge continuity error.
Yeah, I agree. That was another kind of gripe I had with this episode because he.
Well,
it's weird though because he essentially acts like he doesn't know anything about her, but then and then I think it's even the next episode, like he maybe it's the next episode or the one after that, but he's basically talking to Ahsoka like he knows everything about her. Like, motherfucker, you just said in this episode that you needed Morgan to tell you everything that she knows about Ahsoka. So what is it?
Well, if we're gonna brain fart previous knowledge and he doesn't know anything about Ahsoka and it's like, hey, Morgan, tell me. By the next episode, it can be inferred that she has then told him. But
yeah, I guess that's true.
We all and I guess if they're just discounting the books, which there is a Disney canon Thrawn series that I haven't read, Thrawn knows Vader. They've worked together. They are as close to friends that a being like Thrawn and a being like Vader can be. And Thrawn, through his tactical and strategic knowledge, was able to put together who Vader really is. So and Thrawn knows who Anakin is. There's no reason that Thrawn wouldn't know that Anakin's apprentice or Anakin's Padawan was Ahsoka, and ipso facto type stuff. So that doesn't make any sense to me. To me, it's a continuity error. Maybe I'm mixing up too much expanded lore stuff with actual lore stuff. But it just it didn't sit right with me. He should know. He shouldn't.
Well, someone coming from not knowing any of that expanding universe stuff still didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, he should know. He worked for the Empire, which means he worked with even without the books, right? Throw the books out. Thrawn worked for the Empire, which means Thrawn at a bare minimum knew of Vader, and we all know that Vader was very secretive about his past. But Thrawn is also supposed to be an intellectual, tactical genius. So even without the books, it would make sense that Thrawn was able to put one and one together to make two, and understand that this Dark Lord Vader didn't come from nowhere. He had to come from somewhere, and the closest candidate for that is Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
So
probably not too hard for him to figure out, even if no one told him.
Yeah. So, like, books aside, at a bare minimum, and I mean a bare minimum, Thrawn should know that Ahsoka falls under Anakin / Vader. And also, like, it's kind of inferred a little bit that Thrawn knows the state of the Empire. So he should, like, if he's able to get enough information to know that much, then he's definitely able to get enough information to know who trained Ahsoka.
Well, he kind of insinuated that he didn't even know who Ahsoka was. At least that's how I kind of took it. Did they not ever meet in Rebels?
I don't think they met one-on-one. Like, I don't think they ever, like, directly fought each other. But, I mean, Thrawn had dossiers on all of his potential enemies. And Ahsoka was a huge starting point for the Rebel Alliance.
Well, I know she was kind of, I don't know, what do you want to call it? It's like incognito, right? Like where she was going as the fulcrum and contacting people as like this,
Yeah.
So, even that being said, I don't know. I agree. I don't think there's any way he didn't know who Ahsoka was. Or at least had a little bit of information.
Thrawn definitely referred to the fulcrum, a.k.a. Ahsoka, a lot in Rebels, especially towards the end.
Okay.
And maybe he didn't know who the fulcrum was, and that's fine. Like, that does kind of make sense that he doesn't know who the fulcrum is. But once he, once again, puts one and one together and talks about, or learns about Ahsoka, right? Like, some dots should have already connected.
Yeah.
You know?
He's got a lot going on. He's got depression, weight gain. He's trying to feed his whole zombie crew of troopers. He's just a busy guy.
Wrong. He's a really busy guy. It's been 10 plus years, but it ain't been 10 plus years of nothing.
Yeah. Wait, who knows how time works in this galaxy? You know what I mean? Maybe it's been.
Well, they do like scientists do say that on different planets and stuff, time moves differently.
Yeah, you ever seen Interstellar?
Yeah, I was gonna say we all seen that movie Interstellar, but still.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the end of Chapter 6. What was it called? Far, Far Away, I think.
Yeah, Far, Far Away.
I got
which is pretty sick because it started off with in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, very cool.
Hu Yang honestly is the MVP of this episode because he made the
He's
intro.
the MVP of the whole series so far.
He really is.
I think he's my favorite.
He's pretty dope.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks that he plays almost zero part in the rest of this series.
Yeah, pretty much. I do really hope we get a season 2 and they wrap up some of these open-ended questions, and you know what I mean?
I need them to make Thrawn make sense.
Yeah.
There is a way for them to make Thrawn make sense, and I need them to do that. If not, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, because Thrawn is, pardon my French, a super badass. Yeah. Granted, kind of an evil badass, depending on your perspective, but Thrawn's super cool, and they made him kind of a pudgy idiot. So
a little bit.
Yeah, I don't appreciate that.
So, any final thoughts on the episode?
I think if I say anything else, we'll ramble on for another hour and a half, and that'll be too much for our viewers. So
yeah, we're at like an hour 45 right now, somewhere around there. I cut some of it down.
Yeah, I might have to cut out some of my rambling.
No, it's all right. Well, I appreciate it, man. I always love getting together and doing this. I'm trying to figure out when we'll have time to do the next episode. Next episode will be Chapter 7. I know next week is Thanksgiving. It's the holiday weekend, and I'm going out of town, so we will not be recording that weekend.
I'll try to figure out what my actual schedule is because it's very hit and miss. Maybe we can record something depending on what days you have off and I have off, and
Yeah, that's true. We can try
whatever.
to do that.
So
We'll try to
I'll
sneak
let
it
you.
in there.
Yeah, we'll try. If not, it'll be 2 weeks and we'll record
Be
again.
what it is.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, again, we're trying to gather our schedules together as much as we can and try to actually plan out a time to start recording an actual podcast that we want to, create. And it won't be over just one thing. I know I've said this a million times. I just want to reiterate that we're going to have an actual podcast that we're going to start recording. It's going to most likely be me, Shane, and another one of our buddies. We will be talking about everything from what we're doing in our lives, our different parenting ideas.
Beat them all. That's the only way to do it.
The shows we like, video games, things we grew up on, things going around pop culture right now. A new video game comes. I know I really cannot wait until there's like a new, GTA 6 is coming out. Well, not coming out soon, but they have that new trailer coming out.
Yeah.
It's supposed to drop. Super excited about that. So there's a lot of exciting things coming down that we'll get into, and it's really just a time for us to get together and bullshit and hopefully be a little bit entertaining. If not, it is what it is. We're probably going to still keep doing it because we enjoy it. We have a D&D episode or campaign that we're going to try and get into and start recording some of that. I don't know when we'll be able to edit it and actually publish everything, but I'll do my best to jump on that as soon as I can.
Yeah, it will be. So for those of you still watching, we will be doing Lost Mines to start with. When we finish that, there's a couple of campaigns that piggyback off of Lost Mines, and then there's a new one that just dropped with the new source book that kind of is a direct correlation to Lost Mines. But we are going to, after we complete Lost Mines, talk about whether we want to start a different campaign or continue off of something that branches off of Lost Mines, and that'll be a conversation between me and the players, and then
for those who don't know, Shane will be the DM for that campaign.
Yeah, after I in a perfect world, if things go as I envision it right now, we will bring Lost Mines up to level 20. If we're in agreement with that, and then after level 20 is the level cap for D&D. 90% of campaigns don't go to level 20. Usually level 20 is set for they call them one shots. It's like a mini campaign that takes one session, maybe 2 or 3, but that's about it. But most people don't get to level 20. I want to string campaigns along until these characters get to level 20, unless we decide to start a different campaign. But once I've gotten these players to level 20, I've been writing a homebrew campaign, which I'm very excited to put people through. It's called The Lost Cities of Faerun is what I'm writing. And we'll see how it goes. It'll be a long time till we get to that point.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm probably going to have a ton of questions, whichever one we're doing, because I've never done it. I'm excited, though. I mean, Lauren's going to do it, so she's excited.
And so, just so everyone knows, I run my campaigns kind of fast and loose. I've partially DM'd a couple of different campaigns. I haven't done anything all the way through yet. So to this point, I've been playing for like 5 or 6 years, and the large majority of the time been a player character, not a DM. So I've got a scoosh of experience, but not a lot. But my style is I play fast and loose with the rules. I run more high magic campaigns, and so that the players are having a little bit more fun with stuff, which is why I don't require players like Jake and his wife, Raider, to like actually read the player's handbook. This campaign is how they're going to learn how to play by my rules. So, questions will be asked. There'll be periods where we sort of pause for a second to gather information on things. Even by my rules, we'll play a little bit loose. And then after this campaign, it'll be sort of a training wheels will be taken off, and you guys will be exploring in my version of Faerun. It'll be, I think,
Awesome. No, I'm excited. So anybody who likes D&D, or if you've never even seen it, played it, anything like that, feel free to check it out, and maybe it's something you can get into. Well, this is Pixels, Plots, and Parenting, or 3PN as we like to call it for short, because that can be a mouthful. Search it on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. Right now we have episodes 1, 2, and 3 up and running. I have 4 I need to upload. 5 is recorded. I just need to edit, put it all together, and upload that. And this one's 6, so I'm going to crank that out as soon as I can. We're all very busy people, so I'm working on it. Bear with me. But any feedback, any questions, anything, hit us up on our email. It's pixelsplotsandparenting@gmail.com. So for 3PN, I'm Jake.
And I am Shane.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.